Google is blocking Chinese technology giant Huawei from future updates to some of its phone apps. This comes as the White House has blacklisted Huawei over concerns that the company could spy on American data networks. But the company insists it doesn't pose a security threat. Rory Cellan-Jones from our partners at the BBC reports.
A global trade war is coming to a phone near you. Google has barred the Chinese smartphone maker Huawei from some updates to the Android operating system. The ban means that future Huawei phones won't be able to access popular apps such as YouTube and Google Maps. Existing phones will have access, but won't be able to update to new versions of Android, which could leave users more vulnerable to future security threats. So what do potential customers make of that? So if you were looking at phones and one of them came without YouTube, you couldn't get YouTube, you would rule that out?
Straight away. Straight away, I'm ruling out.
Everything's at the tip of our fingertips, so if something like Maps wasn't available, it would seem more difficult and less accessible.
So if you were, mulling over whether to buy this phone or that phone, if one didn't come with Maps or YouTube, you'd say?
I would probably go for the other phone.
How important do you think things like Google Maps, YouTube, all those applications are?
And they're very, very important to be able to have access to them on your phone on the move. So if they didn't offer that, it would put me off using the phone completely.
Today, a Huawei spokesman admitted future access to some popular apps couldn't be guaranteed.
It's just a question of what's going to happen in the future with updates, and we're at this stage not quite sure how this is going to pan out. But in the fullness of time, we'll be more sure.
Is this a security issue or is this a trade war?
It absolutely is not a security issue. This is all tied to the China-US trade negotiations. And I've every hope and every expectation that this will come to a rapid conclusion.
Not everyone agrees. Huawei is the world's biggest manufacturer of the network equipment that promises to connect hospitals, power stations, driverless cars, and having a Chinese company at the centre of that is a concern for some. Security concerns first raised in the US and echoed by spy chiefs at MI6 have arguably made Huawei the most important company in the world, thrust onto the front line of a new technological and economic Cold War, a Cold War that's coming out of the security shadows and into our everyday lives. Is this another move in a game of chess between China and the US? Huawei thinks so and hope that the tit-for-tat trade war will ultimately be resolved. But once you raise the flag of national security, it's very hard to lower it again.
Once you start to raise concerns about security, it's much easier to sow doubt than it is to rebuild trust. These are very complex devices, complex software, and it's almost impossible to know what they're doing in every possible scenario.
The US, along with Australia and New Zealand, have already shut Huawei out of their future network plans. The UK hasn't made up its mind yet.
I share some of the concerns of our allies. And at this point, I think it's important to take all of that into account, to remember that these are some of the closest intelligence relationships we have in the world, look at the evidence, and then come to a final decision.
When the world's two biggest economies are at each other's throats, other governments and now consumers can get caught in the middle.
Yeah. That was Rory Cellan-Jones reporting.